Hello everyone, welcome to the class. Today we are going to talk about the beauty of architectural design.
Hello everyone, hello Professor Qiu.
Today we are going to talk about the beauty of architecture. This chapter will be divided into 4 parts. Part 1. The beauty of Chinese traditional architecture. Part 2. The beauty of the 6 schools of Chinese architecture. Part 3. The beauty of Western architectural design. Part 4. The comparison of the beauty of Chinese and Western architecture.
Professor Qiu, I'm eager to know the traditional Chinese architecture because each stage has its unique beauty.
You are right. China is a country with a long history and ancient civilization. A large number of historical documents and archaeological research show that the ancient Chinese architecture has its unique characteristics. Now, let's take a look at the development process of ancient Chinese architecture.
In the Paleolithic age, 500,000 years ago, Chinese primitive people used natural caves to live in. For example, the caves of Shandingdong cavemen.
In the Neolithic age, the Clay tribes in the middle reaches of the Yellow River used the lowest layer as the wall and built semi-cave dwellings with wooden frames, grass and mud.
Compared with the previous caves, they began to develop into ground buildings. A typical example is the Danpo site of the Yangshao culture in the Neolithic age.
Different from Yellow River Basin, the Yangtze River Basin is humid and rainy, often plagued by floods and wild animals. The building mold developed into the clump type. Ancient people were known to use mortise and tannum structures to build houses. A typical example is Hemumudu site in Yuyao, Zhejiang province.
From all the development of Chinese architectural culture, some important artistic features were preliminarily formed in the periods of Xia, Shang, and Zhou, such as regular and normalized courtyards, the layout of symmetric axis, wood beam structure, and the building with roof, a body, and a base.
In Alitou site, there are dozens of large and medium-sized remained earth buildings based in its palace area, where the central axis is obvious. Buildings are formed by the main hall, verandas, walls, broad yards, and main gates, and they are designed on a large scale, in complicated structure, in strict layout, and in clear order between the primary and secondary.
The Spring and Autumn period by Lu wrote that the ancient states choose to stand in the center of the world, and the capitals choose to stand in the center of the state, and palaces choose to stand in the center of the capital.
At this time, it marked that the ancient Chinese architecture had an embryonic form. The technology of rammed earth, wood frame, the facade and plane, layout of buildings, as well as the manufacturing and application of building materials, color and decoration have laid a foundation for the development of ancient Chinese architecture in the past generations.
Up to the Spring and Autumn period and the Warring States period, the country was divided into smaller states of different cultures, which led to the separation of the agriculture style into North and the South, forming the North style based on Qi state, Jing state, and the South style based on Chu state and Wu state.
As in literature, the Book of Songs in the Zhou dynasty and the Songs of Chu in the Warring States period represented the North and South.
After the Qing state unified the country, the various cultures from different states were concentrated in the central plain, and thus the architectural style of the whole country tended to be unified. The culture of the Qing dynasty passed down to Han, so it came out the architectural style of the Qing and Han dynasties.
The Qing and Han architectural culture made outstanding contribution to Chinese architectural rationalism, with clear aesthetics, stringent layout, and regular composition. The capital city was regularly designed, with neighborhood and the market closed by high walls. The palace and the mausoleum and ritual building laid out in big complex.
In addition, the monument construction along the axis was symmetrically large. The roof was big. The curve was not marked. Eaves were shaped and upturned. Carvings were colorful and weird and lulling in exaggeration.
What's more, important buildings were of symbol, most of which were religious. In this period, there were buildings such as Epang Palace, Qing Terracotta Warriors, unearthed Han Cemetery, and the Chang'an, City of the Han, which were buildings of Chinese style, a creation after the Chinese architecture carried on the architectural ideas and comprehended the architectural cultural language.
In the Wei, Jin, and the southern northern dynasties, the Chinese architecture changed greatly. On the one hand, the northern minorities entered the central plains, and the intelligentsia of central plains moved to the south for beautiful scenery, forming the basis of Chinese garden aesthetics and bringing out the romantic emotional mode.
Buddhist architectural culture also affected the traditional Chinese architecture. Grotto, statues of Buddha temples and pagodas began to appear. For example, Yungang Grotto in Datong, Shanxi Province, and Longmen Grotto in Luoyang, Henan Province, were excavated in the northern Wei dynasty.
Buddhism developed rapidly during the Eastern Han dynasty. When Buddhist pagodas began to prevail, the Chinese architecture of this period incorporated many architectural forms and styles inherited from India and West Asia.
Yes, frequent exchanges with the Western regions promoted the communication of culture and art between the nations. Then, the rational and romantic style of the Sui and the Tang dynasties was formed.
It was featured with the grand capital city, vast exchange and palace complex, large space, vigorous and thick buildings, various figures, beautiful decoration, and rich color.
At that time, it had formed an independent and complete architectural system, which had developed into a mature stage in ancient China, and had deeply spread its influence to Korea and Japan.
Nara City in Japan, for example, is Japan's great absorption of Chinese architectural culture. When you walk in Nara City, you feel as if you were in the ancient Chang'an City.
During the Song, Liao, and Jin dynasties, there were many improvements and breakthroughs in urban layout, architectural technology, and art, especially in the Song dynasty.
Thanks to the development of economy, handcraft industry, and technology in the Song dynasty. The bracket set system, architecture, construction, and modeling technology in Song dynasty reached a very high level.
The architecture of the Yuan dynasty boldly reduced the use of wooden frame structure, and the architectural characteristics of this time were extensive and uninhibited. Because the Mongolians love white, the Yuan dynasty buildings mostly use white glazed tiles.
Because the rulers of the Yuan dynasty believed in religion, especially Tibetan Buddhism, religious architecture in this period was extremely prosperous.
The mature style of Chinese architecture emerged in the Ming and Qing dynasties. Clear specifications, open lanes, frontage, stores, and lively street markets. In suburbs, there appeared scenic resorts and public touring areas.
Official and civil buildings were in their specific characteristics. Local styles were formed. Gardening art prospered. Gardening techniques grew so mature that many private and royal gardens appeared, all of which was typical of the Ming and Qing style of humanity.
Beijing Royal Palace, for example, is the world's largest existing complex with 5 and well-preserved buildings. Also, Beijing Royal Gardens and Suzhou Private Gardens are exquisite in art and unique in style.
It can be said that in the Ming and Qing dynasties, the foundry technology of traditional Chinese architecture reached its peak. And because the Ming and Qing dynasties are the most recent, many architectural masterpieces have been preserved up to now.
Now let's feel the beauty of Chinese traditional architecture. Symmetry refers to a form with the same shape and quantity. If the space is divided into 2 equal parts by a straight line, they not only have the same mass, but also have the same extents.
A reasonable combination of symmetry and spatial art forms creates a balanced sense of health and calm. The architectural structure itself is not only full of aesthetic expression, but also conforms to the law of mechanics. From the perspective of aesthetics, symmetry is also the image representation of natural beauty.
Yes, in architecture, it often gives people a sense of solemn, with a sense of classical beauty and order, which is why China's ancient imperial cities, palaces, temples, tombs are mostly symmetrical.
Secondly, it is the beauty of details. The eaves and ridges of ancient Chinese buildings are often lined with a number of small animals as decorations. These beautiful decorations are the major feature of Chinese architectural decoration.
Most ancient Chinese buildings are civil structures, and the roof ridges are made of tiles covered by wood. The tile at the front end of the eave angle is easily blown down by strong winds if it is in the forefront position without protection. Therefore, people use tile nails to fix the top end of the eave angle tile.
These animal ornaments with different expressions and vivid images were called wenshou, zoomorphic ornaments. The arrangement of wenshou is actually a perfect combination of practical components of ancient architecture and the artistic modeling of architecture.
In the process of beautifying the nail caps, a variety of animal images were gradually formed, which were further endowed with functions of decoration and marking besides the practical functions.
In the Qing dynasty, it was stimulated that only official buildings could set Wenshou, and folk buildings were not allowed to use them. The number of animal images depends on the size of the palace and the grade of the building. The Hall of Supreme Harmony in the Forbidden City has the largest number of animals, and is the only one of China's ancient buildings with 10 animals.
Viewed from a distance, the rows of small Wenshou on the corner of the high eaves are often set against the bright sky, so that people often have the impression that they are a beautiful silhouette.
That's really beautiful. More knowledge on the beauty of traditional Chinese architecture will be discussed in detail in the next session.
Well, that's all for today. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.